Okay. Let's try round 2. Okay. So the left-hand column there, identity services, that's going to span both use cases. And that's in the before category. Before we grant you access to our network, we want to ensure that we answer the who, what, when, where, how, and do 2 things. First, authenticate you. Do you belong on our network? And number 2, if you do, if we authenticate you, we're going to push you the appropriate level of privileges based on your identity. Now, the admin console, this has got to span all of that. Nobody wants to go to each switch, each wireless controller, each firewall, and create policy. They want to create policy in one spot. The more we can consolidate endpoint authentication, the more we're going to minimize risk. If you got 15 different discontiguous spots for configuration, you're widening your risk exposure, you're increasing your likelihood for a configuration error. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We want to try to consolidate that, so it's got to span all of that. Now, the during category, you see on Purdue L level 0 through 2, you may have some type of SCADA traffic, maybe DNP3, maybe Modbus traffic. You want to ensure that this traffic is properly formed, no inconsistencies exist. We can use our firewall for that. We have DPI technology, DPI, deep packet inspection. Now, we also want to identify our traffic vectors, our destinations. So you may have a remote plant that's going to be communicating to a control center. If you do, what are those applications? Are you permitting traffic? Are you denying traffic? What protocols are being used? You need this information to identify your risk so you can create your plan. You may have some cloud applications that you're using. If so, what are they? What protocols are they using? What are you permitting? What are you denying? And now the after category. After a threat makes its way in your network, do you have the ability to detect it? Do you have the ability to baseline the behavior of the endpoints in your zones? And if a deviation occurs, you'll be alerted about it. Do you have the ability to remediate? That's what you see AMP, A-M-P, Advanced Malware Protection is what it stands for. That addresses the after category. CTA, Cognitive Threat Analytics, maybe some of you have heard about that, where AMP is looking at actual files. This is looking at log traffic. Remember, there is no silver bullets. We want to examine as many variables as we can to complete our security posture. And we can pump flows, net flows, to a console. You heard Robert talk about Landcope StealthWatch, so that's where this will come into play here. And now this transition identifies the vectors. The vectors on the left side, people and devices can be vectors. Traffic, the actual traffic can be a vector. Your destinations will be vectors. And in the upper left-hand quadrant there, you see Talos. So you need a threat intelligence platform. And we had Cisco's SIO, which saw 35% of the world's email traffic, web traffic, IPS traffic, and SourceFire. They own 2 of the largest open source communities in the world, Snort and ClamAV, which means they see hundreds of thousands of attack samples every day. So what Talos is, we finally married them into one comprehensive threat intelligence platform. So now you saw it transition from product function to product name. Identity on the left side was identity, now it's the Identity Services Engine. Up at the top there, VPN is AnyConnect. AMP, AMP, Advanced Malware Protection, that's on our, you can have that in 2 different spots, one on the network, one on the host for defense in depth. Landcope StealthWatch, which will assist with behavior analytics, and our firewall, our ISA, ASA. And this is the full picture. So just for cool factor alone, I had to put this slide in the deck.
Okay, thanks, Rob. And the second question, and then I'll shut up. This is probably going to be for you, Anthony. So questions come through from Doug. Do we need an ICE instance per factory floor, or can ICE be a corporate IT instance? Well, we've had this conversation a number of times.
Yeah, absolutely did. So it really depends on the customer's goal, current posture, design. Luckily, ICE is set up to work or function off of what's called personas. So all 3 personas, the 3 major personas, the admin persona, which is where the configuration is done, the monitoring and logging is where the troubleshooting is done. The PSN, policy services node, is the workhorse. So that does all the AAA profiling, posturing, guests, et cetera. So you can have all three on one instance, or you can split them up. And just a quick example, like in the CPWE architecture, the way we have that set up is they wanted to split them up. So we drop PSNs at the level 3 layer in a Purdue model to be that traffic cop and look at all the endpoints that are attempting access to the network. We also drop an Active Directory instances there as well. And up in level 5, we have the admin persona, which is where the configuration is done, and also an AD instance up there. The ADs replicate information through the DMZ, through secured ports. But luckily, we have the flexibility to do both, and it really depends on the customer. Some OT customers do not want the IT teams to have any configuration responsibility, so they want to maintain all three personas. Some say, I don't want to configure that thing. Throw the admin persona up top. So we have the flexibility to do both.